Good morning and welcome to Ritual Without Rules. Today we are talking about spirit communication. So if you're on YouTube, hey. If you're on Instagram, hey. So I realized I went back and looked at all my videos on YouTube and two of them totally got cut off. So if you have been watching on YouTube, I am going to fix that. I have to figure out how to download my Instagram videos and put them on YouTube. But if you're watching on YouTube and you've been frustrated by the process, just know that the full videos will be up on YouTube shortly. I just have to do all the technical stuff in the background. What happened was we have two networks here, one for my son and one for me. And for some reason, my computer loves to flip flop back and forth between them. So it was cutting out because we don't allow YouTube on my son's network. So it was switching over to my son's network and booting me off YouTube. Don't you love technology? Isn't it so much fun? So I have to know all of these. So today I'm learning how to go onto Instagram, download my videos, and then upload them to YouTube. Yay! So not only am I connected to spirit, but I'm connected to the World Wide Web in big, mysterious ways. And spirit has been crazy for me this week. I don't know how is everybody else feeling in this energy. I haven't started my cauldron yet, so I'm gonna do that. So as you're joining, let me know where you're joining from. Let me know if you've been watching all week and if there's been, some pieces that you've taken from it and put into practice. Like, at the beginning, we were talking about creating your own ritual within the scope of your life. I'm feeling, like I said, I don't want to say I'm feeling a lot better, but I'm definitely here. I'm doing the charcoal thing. I'm feeling better. I'm feeling more myself. Yesterday, I was a bit of a hot mess, and it's so funny when my connection isn't strong, when we're not feeling ourselves, how much it can actually affect what you can channel. Because I'm going to be honest, people, majority of the information that comes out of this brain, I am channeling. And I don't think people realize that. So when you're feeling under the weather, you can't channel the same way that you do when you're feeling great. It's why the whole entire spiritual community is kind of focused on raising your vibration. And it's not necessarily like, ooh, you got to meditate until you're like trippy, hippy, dippy. It's more about keeping yourself healthy so you can do this work. Because when we're sick, it's very hard to do this work. Your vibration is lower, your connection is kind of spotty. So today I want to talk about all of this. And this is one of those things that I don't need to prepare for. So I have been seeing spirit my whole entire life. And we all have the ability to do it. This is the one thing that I truly want to get across. And when I used to do my workshops or when I used to do my groups, I would talk about this a lot because not that I have guilt about people coming to see me. I love connecting people to their ancestors. I love connecting people to their higher self so then they can become wiser, stronger, more empowered. But at the same time, I know that all of you can do what I do. We were born with this gift. Everybody was born with the gift to be able to communicate to spirit. But what happens is we grow up and we lose that childlike wonder. And I will tell you, I never lost there was a period where I lost my childlike wonder. There was a period where I was like, fuck this. I'm not doing this anymore. And I totally turned off my gifts. And you can do that. But the great thing about it is you can turn those gifts back on. And you all have them. And I see so many people teaching mediumship, and I know Spirit is really pushing me to teach mediumship. So that is something that will be coming in the future. Hey, Kay, thanks for joining on YouTube. I think we finally have YouTube figured out. So hopefully you don't get booted off today. But if you do, head on over to Instagram because my videos are there. Ooh, I got to put some of my blend on. So we all have this ability. But I see people teaching mediumship and focusing so much on the clairs, so much on what one is your gift. What do you have precognition? Can you hear spirit? Can you see spirit? Can you do this? Can you do that? I haven't been able to teach mediumship because that's the way I was taught. And it's tradition to teach it that way. So give me a second while I do this so I can clear my head a little bit. Oh, I'll give you guys some. Do you want some? I'm clearing the internet, so all things work perfectly today. So just a little bit of offering to spirit, to myself, to the gods, and we put that on our altar. We all have this ability. But we're being taught that you have one gift, that if you need to focus on the clairs. And that is not, so if you're not into all of this and you're like, Emma, you're talking like Greek, what are you saying? Clairvoyant, clairsentient, and you know what? Spirit or my brain has this ability that if I don't care about something, I cannot remember it. So I don't actually remember all the clairs all the time. People are like, well, what clair do you have? Or what gift do you have? And I'm like, all of them? And this is the thing. I feel like the way that we teach mediumship, the way that we teach people, oh, look at how good the smoke is today. That means spirit's with us. So see how it's going straight up? That means that spirit is pushing in on right down here. So if I push my energy, yeah, I can actually move it. Hang on. Boop. I love divining with smoke. I'm just going to tell you. So most people teach these clairs. So like you can either hear or you can see or you can feel or any of those things. But I find when we do that, I find when we teach that, oh, this is what you can do, this is what you can do, this is what you can do, it limits our brains. It limits our capacity to absorb all the messages that spirit are giving us. And my whole entire life, I didn't start taking mediumship classes until I was in my 30s. Was it my 30s? I think so. Maybe late 20s, no, it was my 30s. And I started, I was taught through the spiritualist church. I was taught to do it a very specific way. Because I'll tell you, the spiritualist church, you have to receive messages a certain way. It is very structured, which is great when you're first learning. But then when you kind of like reach the limitations of what you can receive within that structure, you kind of grow outside of it. And I spoke about that yesterday, that there's lots of people that I know that do the kind of work that I do that learned spiritualist mediumship and then separated themselves from the church. And it, just so you all know, it's not a church. It's just, we believe that life exists after death, and we use these buildings that we call churches to express that to people. So it's not religion based. You can be any dogma and go to the spiritualist church. But I find it really limiting. I find a lot of the ways that we teach spirit communication really limiting because it doesn't allow people to like be expansive and step into the possibilities. I receive messages in so many ways every single day that it's the animals that talk to me. It's the trees that talk to me. It's spirit that talks to me. It's the gods that talk to me. It's the earth itself talks to me. It's the collective talks to me. And in a lot of these courses, in a lot of the way that we are being taught how to communicate with spirit, we don't talk about any of that. It's a very limited scope of how you're supposed to communicate with the energy that is running through every single one of us. There is this universal energy, and we are connected. So there is I wish I could remember what it is, and I'll try to find an image of it, but it looks like a giant donut. So the energy around the earth is this spiral energy, because we have a north pole and a south pole, and it's magnetic, and there's this energy. Remember I told you I loved science? And I also think, hey, Crowning Elements, thanks for joining. Hey, Miss Jody Yogi, thanks for joining, everybody. So we have this energy that's running through all things. It's running through our divination tools. It's running through ourselves. It's running through animals. It's running through the earth. It's running through absolutely everybody. That is the piece that I truly connect with, because that energy carries everything. That energy carries our ancestors' messages. That energy carries our dog's thoughts. That energy carries everything. But I have not yet seen a class where they talk about this in mediumship. And remember what I said yesterday is I took a ton of classes looking for the answer, and I never found it. And I want to express to you today is the answer is within all of us. We don't need to seek outside of ourselves. So yes, eventually I will teach a class on all of this, but your answers are within you. And I think that's really the piece that I struggle with being a medium or a seer or a healer is, yes, I do all of those things, but all of those things are in you too. So I struggle with this concept of you have to come to me and pay me to receive those messages, because I'm receiving those messages from your energy. It's in you. I just have the ability to zoom into them really quickly and pull it out of you, or observe it and push it back towards you. And this is what most mediums and healers are doing. I had a conversation with somebody via my DMs yesterday about somebody wanting to be healed. And they were asking me all of these questions. And I said, well, yes, I believe that there is blockages. I believe there is something going on. But all of these healers that you went to, did they not tell you that you had to be a part of the healing? You had to do the work too? This is the thing. When you come and see me, it's not like you sit back in autopilot and you just absorb the wisdom that I'm giving you and I'm doing all the work. Hell no. I can only do my work if you're open, if you are part of the process. And I say this all the time. When you go and see a medium or when you go and see a healer, if they're not including you in the conversation, if they're just spitting stuff at you and you're just like, yeah, I think so, or you can only say yes or no, how are you a part of that process? Spirit communication, especially when you go and see something, is a three-way conversation. Spirit is involved, you are involved, and then the medium or seer or healer is involved. It has to be inclusive of everybody within that space. And if it's not, it is just ego. I know that I can't do my job unless the person that I am reading is involved. Because sometimes, and we've all had it, if you're a healer or a medium or a seer, say, hey, me too. We've all had a session with somebody where they just sit there like this. And they go, when you go, does that make sense to you? And they go, oh, the hardest thing to do. I can do that because I've been doing this my whole entire life, so I can get past the wall. I know all the tricks. I know all the ways to soften somebody. It's the great thing about being an empath, because I go, what are you afraid of? And then I talk to their higher self and I get them to open up. But it's the hardest thing when you're met with that. I call them the purse holders. You know, when I used to do groups and there'd be like 20 people in a group, there was always one that had their purse on their lap, and that you could just see that their sphincter was clenched. Like every single piece of them was clenched. And to actually have a proper reading, to actually receive a message from spirit, you have to be open. You have to be open to receiving that energy that is flowing through all things. And I think mediums and seers and healers don't necessarily communicate that in the proper way. And I'm not doing this video to bash anybody else's, like, it's just something that I have noticed. It's something that, you know, I have noticed in my healing practice. I have noticed in my seer practice. I have noticed in my business practice that people come in and they expect you to give your everything of yourself. So learning how to be open, learning how to be relaxed around spirit, learning how to see all the things and not just very specific things is the key to being able to communicate with spirit. So once again, we're going to go back to what we talked about yesterday. Fear. I get it. I totally do. Some days, Elizabeth April on YT also expresses, we can all do this. Yeah, and this is the thing. You all have the ability to do what I do. The only reason that this is my full-time job is because I never stopped. So when I was a kid, I was open as hell and I saw absolutely everything every single day. I didn't realize that the spirits that I was seeing weren't real. So I'll tell you a really quick story that's in my book. When I was 8 years old, I was in England at my uncle's house, and you can actually go on and Google his house. It's like, well, it's not their house anymore, but it was called the Neptune, and it was in Ipswich, and it was one of the oldest houses in Ipswich. It has a very mysterious background. But that's where my uncle lived. And we were there one day, the whole entire family was there, and we were there with all the kids. And I think we were playing, I can't even remember at this point. I think we were playing hide and go seek. And, you know, there were places in the Neptune that you were kind of had to stay away from, or you kind of like, he was an antique dealer. So he had lots of pieces that probably shouldn't be disturbed or whatever. So we had to be in certain areas. Well, of course, Emma decided to go wherever it was because I wanted to win. I never win hide and seek because I'm loud and I giggle and I'm not a very good hider. So I went into this one room, and I still remember there was like this big giant bed, and then there was a bedside table, but there was like this little nook that I kind of slipped into. So I was like kind of hiding in between these two things, and the door was kind of off to the side. So I thought if somebody looked in the room, they're not even going to see me. So immediately the door opens and I'm like, oh God, here we go. Like I haven't even been hiding for like 2 minutes. And in walks this little kid, and the kid looked like, you know, he was dressed in old clothes, like a little wool jacket with the buttons coming up. And I think he had like a little flat cap on, but my uncle was eccentric, and I thought this was probably one of his friends' kids that had, you know, doing a war reenactment or something, or they were just dressing up for the sake of dressing up. So he came in, and you could tell he was looking for a spot to hide. So I'm like, hey, come over here. Let's hide together. And he came in and kind of like, we were like so squeezed in together. And I think I was 8 or 9 when this happened. I can't remember. So he came in and sat behind me, and then we were there carrying on conversations like little 8-year-olds do, and I didn't really think anything of it. And then in bursts the rest of my cousins, and they're like, there you are, we couldn't find you, blah, 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 blah. And I looked over at this kid because they said Emma. They didn't say Emma and whatever this kid's name was. They just said, oh, hey, Emma, we found you. And I looked over at this kid, and this kid just goes, and in that moment, I realized that all of these people that I had been seeing were spirits. To me, when I was younger, they were fully formed. They were like a part of my life. I thought these were my friends. You know, my mom tells me that I had like a million imaginary friends, but now I'm realizing they weren't imaginary. These were spirits coming to me because once they realize that you can see, oh, well, no, I know this, and this is the thing. If you have fear around it, it limits your ability to see. And I understand why to some people that would be incredibly scary. Like last night, me and my son weren't feeling very well, so I put a diffuser in his room and I put a diffuser in my room, but we had to come into the shop thank you. We had to come into the shop to grab some oils or something. And we both our heads whipped around. And I'm like, Henry, do you see that person standing there? And he's like, yeah, I see that person standing there. And I was like, okay. So we're like, bye, good night. You can stay in the shop. And I closed the door behind me because there was energy in this room. Both me and my son saw it, just like somebody standing there. But we don't have fear because it is a part of our daily life. My son, and we'll get to this. So listen on YouTube said, what about the not so good spirits? I will talk about that in a little bit. But in my world, there are no spirits that are bad. There are only spirits that are conflicted, that are stuck, that are pissed off that they didn't go over to the other side. Or, imagine this. You used to see them as a child and now you feel them. Yeah, that's exactly it. We all had this ability. So, when you hear your best friend's brother's daughter is like 2 years old and they're looking up at the corner and going and giggling, they're seeing spirits. All kids are born with this ability. As we grow up and fear becomes a reality, we push that away. Fear is what's preventing you from having a good relationship with spirit. And I know it's easy for me to say, hey, you just got to stop being afraid. Society does an amazing job of telling us that there are evil spirits, that telling us that Ouija boards can be possessed, that all of this negative energy is going to show up if you open up. And if you have a spiritual practice, if you clear your energy, if you find tinctures that work for you, if you keep your vibration at a decent level, that is not a problem. Like in the spiritualist church, we are taught that there's no evil, there's no devil, and I know that that's my belief, and I will tell you, I understand that there are people that are a part of the church and they believe in, heaven and hell. But I communicate with spirit. I've communicated with spirit on the daily since I was 3 years old. I am here to tell you that I have only once seen something negative. It's all about trust. I trust spirit to keep me safe. And when I trust spirit, they trust me. So I always say to spirit, if there's something within this space that is negative, can you please take it away? But also there is a piece of me that doesn't believe that negative even exists. I think evil, the devil, all of these things were created to keep us small. It is fear. And if you look at any kind of horrific tragedy on this planet, like the Holocaust or genocide or even I live in Canada. Look at what is happening right now with the residential schools. That was all about creating fear. The RCMP created fear, the church created fear, and then people were afraid because the church was afraid of the power that the indigenous people on this continent had. They lived freely. They, communed with nature, and they were separate from the church. They didn't care what the church talked about. And to the church, that's incredibly powerful. That's the church was afraid of the indigenous people, so they squashed them to take their power away. And that happens over and over and over again. If we look at the Holocaust and Hitler, that was all about creating fear so one person had the power. And again, in the spiritual world, anything that is based in fear shrinks your power. So when we say, if they're not so good spirits, or I'm afraid of them, you are giving the power to evil that was created by man. I have never seen a negative spirit. Now, I will tell you, I have lots of friends that are into ghost hunting, that are into invoking negative shit from the Ouija board. But here's my belief, is they are afraid of ghosts. They are afraid of evil spirits. So it's just humanity's fear showing up. Because remember, I talked yesterday of, I think it was Aragogs, or there's a word for it, negative thought forms. Humanity created fear. If you look at the Bible, and trust me, I haven't really read the Bible, but I know some of the stories in it because I was forced to go to Bible school, and I went to a horseback riding camp that was based in Christianity. But if you look at the Bible, the very first story says, if you eat that fucking apple, you will be cast out. Fear, people. When you remove fear from spirit and Hollywood, when you remove fear from spirit communication, you will easily be able to communicate with spirit. And you can tell how riled up I get about this, because so many people talk about protection, 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 because there's evil, 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 evil. I believe that's total bullshit. You've been indoctrinated by Hollywood, by the church, by fearmongers, that spirit is evil. There is evil in the spiritual realm. There's not. I will tell you, I live a fucking magical life. I live where spirit gives me messages every single fucking day. And it makes me so angry that so many people put fear out into the world. We're seeing it now with COVID. Fear, 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 fear. Fear is brought into this world to control us. So remove the fear. Trust that when you were born, that when you were brought into this world, you were brought into this world with all of the gifts that you deserved. And it is the fear that made you smaller. It is the societal beliefs that made you smaller. I love a fucking scary movie. I love watching, I think there's actually a movie called Ouija, and the Ouija board does all this evil. I love watching those because I love to be scared. But there is not one piece of me that believes that any of that is real, because I talk to spirit every single day. I connect with that universal energy that goes through everything every single day. And I have never been afraid. I once had this really weird thing crawl across the ceiling, but I'll tell you, I looked at it and went, well, that was fucking weird, and went on with my life. I didn't focus on the fact that that could have been like a gremlin or a demon. Or when you think these things, you give it power. You create the fear, because there is nothing negative. This planet that we live on is a life form in itself. It has a heart. It has, Mother Earth, or whoever you believe created this planet, had divine like beliefs that we could all live here equally. And unfortunately, ego and money got involved. And that's when all the negativity showed up. That's when all the fear showed up. You know, I think about our ancestors and how hard they have worked to get us to where we are today. You know, I tell people all the time, you need, oh, thanks. Somebody says, thank you for being you. You know, we need to realize that this planet is giving us gifts all the time. I see COVID as a gift. This is a gift for everybody to realize you need to slow down. We were consuming and moving, you know, our planet is on fire right now. There's fires in Turkey, there's fires in Canada, there's fires in the US, and we just went through Australia pretty much burning to the ground. Because they're asking us to stop consuming. Spirit is asking us to take care of this divine gift that they gave us, this planet that we live on. And if you live in fear, if you think that this world is out to get you, that spirit is out to get you, you're the one creating that fear. So understand that spirit can change your fucking life. Because before I truly stepped into my gifts, I had 3 nervous breakdowns because spirit was trying to show me these truths. And I had some of that fear. I had some of that overwhelm. I had some of that, you know, distrust in society, distrust in, you know, I was watching the scary movies. I was watching all of these things, but that attracts more negative stuff. And when you think that spirit is evil or that there are evil entities out there, that is what you are going to attract. So, you know, whenever I see ghost hunters, it drives me insane because I'm like, you know, you don't have to hunt them, right? You know, they're right here with us. Like, why are you? I will never understand ghost hunters. Yes, I understand wanting to communicate with spirit, wanting to connect with the energy of a place. But why are we putting such a negative connotation on something that can truly lift you up? Spirit has shown me my whole entire life that if I get out of my own way, life can be fucking magical. And yeah, sometimes I get fear about going live and speaking these things. But if I don't speak these things, I cannot sit within that energy. And that energy, that universal energy that runs through all things, every single thing. This is energy. You know, your dog is energy. The trees are energy. The earth is energy. Use that energy in your everyday life. Instead of like being fearful and being like, no, I don't want to connect. I'm so afraid what spirit is going to tell me. That's another thing I hear all the time. You know, my mother-in-law was hilarious. I absolutely loved her. She was like, you know, for the longest time, she was my confidant and I super miss her. And actually, I had a conversation with somebody the other day and they're like, you're still grieving heavy. You need to like, and I'm like, I know. But she was hilarious because she knew I could do all of this. She saw me go out. She watched some of my videos. She saw me have spiritual connections, but she was always like, I don't want a reading because I don't want to know when I'm going to die. And you know what happened? I knew 5 years before she was sick that she was going to get sick. And I knew when she was going to die. She manifested that because that was the one thing she was afraid of. That if I sat down with her, I was going to tell her. But that's not what we do. I mean, yes, spirit told me, and then I had 5 years to prepare my family. And this is another thing. Every single message you receive, you don't have to give. You have to have the moral compass. You know, I knew that telling my mother-in-law that she was going to get sick and die was going to do nothing for her. So instead, I took that information and I prepared my family. I took care of, maybe, hey, Joan, maybe we should clear out the basement because there's a lot of stuff in there. Because I knew what was going to happen. I mean, that's a huge weight to carry. I didn't tell my husband for like 3 years. Um, and also, too, even though I was receiving that information, there were pieces of me that were like, is this? Because you never know. Spirit is really interesting. Spirit, there's no time where spirit is. So when people ask me, how long do I have left on this planet? They will give me a timeline. They'll go 3 or 6, 9 or 12. And I don't know if that's, and I can ask with my pendulum, but it's also something that we don't need to know. Live your life truly and honestly every single day. Connect with your energy and the universal energy every single day and live a joyful life. We're only doing this lifetime once. You only get one kick at this lifetime. Yes. Hey, Kim. Hey, Happy Lotus Yoga. Thanks for joining. We only get this one once. So do you want to live in fear, or do you just want to go out and kick ass? Do you want to say, hey, spirit, I'm open? So let's talk about it after I'm done my big rant about how society and people in power, even some mediums, put the fear of negative spirits into you so you never go down that path. But what I am here to say is there is nothing to be afraid of. A connection with spirit is the most powerful thing you can have. Because here's the thing. Your ancestors are standing right behind you, pushing you in the direction you need to go every single day. So why would you not open yourself up? Because as soon as I allowed my ancestors to say, hey, this is what you need to do, all of a sudden my life got a little bit better. All of a sudden I was able to see the path that I wanted to go on. And yes, I get to live this magical fucking life because spirit helped me get here. This isn't about me. And yeah, okay, I have good business sense. And yes, I know how to market myself. And yes, I know how to do all of these things. But me trusting spirit and allowing them to guide me has been how I got here. This is how I got here. It's not because of luck. It's not because of any of those things. It's because of my relationship with spirit. And I want to help you find that relationship yourself. Because can you imagine? And I mean, we've already seen it in the last couple years. So I'm sure you've all noticed there has been an uptick in the witchy realm because more and more people are coming out and saying, hey, this is something you can have access to. You can have an altar. You can dedicate yourself to a god or goddess. You can do all of these things too. But what I'm here to do is to really talk honestly about this stuff and get rid of all the fear that is put out into the world when it comes to spirit. Like, I talked yesterday about protection and that I'm a huge believer in expansion. When my energy is good and when I can expand my energy out beyond this, I have no fear. I have no fear. Like, I've been in back alleys in Morocco and being approached by creepy people, and there is not 1 ounce of me that goes, okay, this is dangerous. I just go, I'm here for a purpose. That I need to experience this right now. And then my mind goes, okay, I know how to deal with this. Spirit, watch over me. Spirit, guide me. Spirit, tell me what street to walk down. And it's amazing. Once you have that trust with spirit, once you start asking them to support you and help you in your life, and you say, I am no longer afraid and I am committed to creating this relationship with you, that's when all the fucking magic happens. That's when things just become easier. So, People ask me all the time, how do you start a connection with spirit? So we've talked about where is your ritual. Ritual is really important. The reason why ritual is really important is doing the same thing at the same time consistently to raise your vibration or to raise your energy so you can be open to receiving messages. Because you saw yesterday, if you watched that video, my energy was so low because I was so sick. And I didn't have the same energy. I wasn't communicating the same way because I wasn't feeling at my best. So it is our job to live our best life and be as healthy as we possibly can. So then that connection to that energy is clear. That's what everybody is talking about when they say raise your vibration. It's if your energy is low, you're never going to reach that connection with spirit because spirit is a high vibration. They're vibrating so very, very high. So what happens is when we communicate with spirit, we have to raise our energy up and they have to raise or lower their energy. So then we meet. And if you know about anything about energy, it comes in waves, right? So our energy, even as I'm sitting here now, you can see my energy go up and down. When I get ranty, it's up here. And when I'm talking calmly, it's kind of neutral, right? And then yesterday, you saw me at a really low energy because I haven't slept, to be honest. I haven't slept for like 3 days. And a lot of it is because I've blasted open the doors to spirit and they're communicating with me right now 24/7. It can be a little tiring, but I'm loving it because I asked them to give me energy today so I could do this. So I didn't have the disaster like yesterday's video. And it really wasn't that bad, but my energy was completely different. So first of all, getting into that routine or ritual of doing things to raise our vibration, whether it's pulling a card to say, hey, what do I need to know today? But when you ask spirit, what do I need to know? You're offering yourself to them and you're saying, hey, I'm here. I'm open to receiving. So if you can do that every single day, or once a week, or once a month, or whatever works within your realm, that connection will open up. That connection will become more consistent. But if you're like, yeah, or ooh, I'm really afraid of this, it's very hard to make that connection. So consistency is incredibly important. And raising our energy or staying healthy to be in tune with spirit is incredibly important. But also that being open. One of the biggest things, and I had a conversation with one of my really good friends the other day. We did mediumship training together and we stood up at the spiritualist church together. And I absolutely adore her. And she's like, you're not trusting. And she's right. A lot of the time when I get depressed or when I get anxious, it's because I'm not trusting spirit to take care of me. And I talk a lot about this in my book, that when I get so focused and you know the difference when your energy is expansive and your energy is small. For me, when my energy is like really low, like it was yesterday, I'm in here, not my third eye, but I'm in my head. Being in your head is not the greatest place to be. When we're overthinking and we're thinking these negative thoughts, excuse me for a second. When we're thinking these negative thoughts, it can be really hard for spirit to access us. They're here waiting to communicate with us, but we're not able to see it because our vibration is so low. And I realized that my anxiety is because spirit is constantly with me. And when I'm anxious, it's because they're going, hey, Emma, hey, Emma, hey, Emma, like, you're not listening to us. Hey, Emma, what's up? Why aren't you listening to us? And that feeling, that intensity makes me anxious. So all I have to do now is go like, what? What do you need? Like, what do you need from me? So when they told me yesterday or the day before, you have to stop smoking weed and you have to teach mediumship, I was like, okay, fine, I will do this. And as soon as I agreed to do that, everything, I can now see a path to where I need to go. So somebody on YouTube just asked me, what about if you have no clue who your ancestors are? My mom was adopted and my father wasn't in the picture. You don't need to know who your ancestors are to communicate with them. It's just energy. So when my ancestors show up and tap me on the shoulder, sometimes I know who they are, and sometimes I have no idea who they are. So the other pieces too, we have this amazing technology right now is Ancestry or all the DNA tests where you can find out where your ancestors come from. And this is something really, I think is really important, that we know where our magic resides. So when I first started all of this, I didn't really know where my ancestors came from either. I was born in England, and yes, I knew the general area where my ancestors were from, but we didn't know the root of our traditions. And yesterday I talked about being Romani and I talked about being Norse. Those are the two roots of where I come from in England, because if you know anything about England, everybody has been there. So essentially, you have the possibility of being from anywhere if you're from England. One of the only ways to really, why stop smoking? I have no idea, actually. But I know it won't be forever. They've just told me that I need to not be smoking right now. And I listen to, my husband's really pissed because he's like, so you're going to listen to them, but you wouldn't listen to me? My husband, if, I call him the lumberjack. He's Mr. Straight Lace, never done anything, drug wise or any, like, he stays close to home. And he doesn't always necessarily understand why I do these things. And I'm like, I'm expansive. I want to try everything because you never know. Again, no fear. I have no fear. But yeah, I don't know why they've asked me to stop smoking, but I'll listen to them because my connection to spirit has been so true my entire life. My connection to spirit has been so amazing. So to answer your question, listen, on YouTube, get a DNA test done. Do some digging. This is all this, when people ask me what witchcraft is, it's not a religion. Witchcraft is just a practice that includes herbology, candle magic, all of these things. And I will tell you, one of the other things that like drives me mental about the industry right now is people are trying to, what kind of witch am I? Am I a forest witch? Am I a sea witch? Am I a crystal witch? Am I a spell witch? Am I a this witch? You're just a fucking witch. Listen. Hundreds of years ago, when witches roamed this earth as healers and midwives and herbalists and all of these things, do you think they were concerned with what fucking label they used? No, they didn't tell anybody. There isn't such a thing as a forest witch. There isn't just a thing as a, you're just a witch. We don't need labels. And this is another way to control. You need to fit into a box. And again, creating fear. If you don't know what kind of witch you are, you're not really a witch. Can you tell this shit makes me angry? I don't fit in a box. I don't fit in the spiritual community. I don't fit in the mediumship community. I don't fit in the witch community because I'm all of it. I'm all of it. Stop limiting yourself. Don't put yourself in a box. Like, listen, on your question there, there's fear for you around that adoption. There's fear for you around what if I find something I don't want to find? Just go get a DNA test done. Go, like, save up. I know they're expensive. I know that it's, all of these things sometimes cost money, but if you really want to know, just get it done. I'm allergic to groups too, Grumpy Granny, even though and it's why I started a community. So if you're loving what you're seeing this week, join me in my free community. Join me because we'll have these conversations often. I love that magic is becoming a bigger thing. I love that was the reason why I started all of this however many years ago, was to share with people that this is accessible to everyone. You're not born with it. You're not born into it. There's so many people that call themselves a generational witch, or they call themselves or whatever. And again, with the labels are created to put you into a box, to force you to have fear around something that we shouldn't have fear around. It's the fear that is making you small. When our energy is expansive, we have access to all things. You have access to your ancestors. I mean, listen, if you really want to connect with your ancestors, start expanding your energy. As soon as your energy expands, let me tell you a story about my ancestors. So when I really started teaching all of this stuff in the beginning, I really, had everything. I was like, okay, Hindu gods and Celtic gods and this, because I dove into it deep and said, where do I want to be, right? Where do I want to sit in this realm? So I opened the book really, really, really wide and said, I'm going to try everything. And this is what you have to do. I'm going to try everything, and then I'm going to see what resonates. So I looked at Hindu gods, which are a part of my ancestry because we're Romani. And if you follow Romani all the way back, Hindu is where it all started. Celtic is also a part of my tradition. So I was just kind of like, you throw out the nets and you hope you catch something. But it was so funny because I had Kyle Gray's Keepers of the Light deck. And I will tell you, if you want to get into this, it is one of the tools that I highly recommend because it covers the angels, the ascended masters, all the gods and goddesses, and it really does throw a wide net. But I started using that deck, and every single day I would shuffle and go, who do I need to call in today to watch over me? Or who do I need to call in today for strength? Or who do I need to call in for whatever? Every single day, Odin and Freya. Odin and Freya. And at the time, I had no connection to Norse. I didn't know that that was a part of my ancestry. And there was a piece of me that felt guilty that oh, you did that. So perfect. Lisanne is saying that she did a DNA test and she has Scottish, Irish, and French descent. So look there, because let me finish this little story. So I was like, okay, Norse, I guess I'm Odin. And then all of a sudden, if you've ever heard me talk, the crows and ravens in my life it was ridiculous. We would go places and there would be 20 crows. I drove up north to take a workshop on death and dying. And on the way, we saw 55 crows. And when I showed up at the cottage that I was renting that weekend, there were 3 crows waiting for me. So I was pulling cards with Freya and Odin. All of these crows were showing up, which are connected to Freya and Odin. Odin specifically, because he has 2 ravens, Hugin and Munin, which are thought and, oh my God, I can never remember, brain. Thought and memory. And they come down to Midgard, which is our earthly plane, and they look at all of Odin's sons and daughters and then convey the messages back to him. They are the connection to the God world. Well, they were showing up for me every single day. Like, it was ridiculous. So then I was like, okay, well, this has to be something. So I started looking into Norse traditions. I started looking into those practices. And listen, you can look into Scottish and Irish heritage. You can look into that French descent. Start looking and see what lands. For me, as soon as I started looking at Odin, as soon as I started looking at Freya, who we're going to talk about tomorrow because it's Day of the Goddess tomorrow, and Friday is Freya's day, as soon as I started doing that, things started becoming really clear. Every single time I read something about Norse magic, every single time I see, like the other day, there was an article written about how they've recently found a Norse Viking grave that has male and female things in it. And from that, they're thinking that this individual showed up as male and female. So the fact that there were non-binary people in Norse tradition, which I kind of already knew this, just lights my heart up because I'm they, them. That is how I have never felt female or male. So reading that article just made me go, oh my God, I'm home. And then when I read stuff about how Norse tradition is inclusive to everybody. So that's the one thing I love about Norse is the Vikings and just Norse traders in general went all over the world and they brought people back with them. So there were Black Vikings. There were Spanish Vikings. There were English Vikings. They collected people and said, hey, if you want to come with us, yes, there are aspects of Norse traditions that's like raping and pillaging and all of those things. But trust me, when you start to look at your ancestry, you're going to find that everywhere. I'm British. We conquered fucking everybody and did horrible fucking shit. But you can't be afraid of that. That's not you. I know there's two people. Amy just said she has a DNA kit, but she blocked actually doing it because of fear. What if I find out that my grandfather was a Nazi? What if I find out Trust me, it feels like shit for about 2.5 seconds. And then all of a sudden the power goes away because that's them. That's not you. You are here to be able to say, I came from this, but look what I've achieved. So I am not my ancestors. I am a part of that bloodline. But just because my ancestors did shitty things doesn't mean that I'm a shitty person. So again, Amy, and listen, don't allow that fear to stop you from seeking. Don't allow that fear to stop you from stepping into your power, because that is what this is all about. Once you've stepped into your power, you know where you're from, you know where your magic is, you can show up and bring in all of these wonderful things into your magic, then, oh my God, nobody can hold you down. Nobody can keep you from being the best expression of you. And that is what this is about. Our ancestor, I will tell you, when COVID started, the ancestors disappeared for me. And they kind of went like this. They went, you guys need to fucking figure this shit out because we've been trying. We've been trying to communicate with you for years that you need to stop harming the environment, that consumerism is where the evil is, that, trying to join, like go up the corporate ladder is ridiculous. Like, think about it. What does money actually get you? Yes, maybe a fancy cottage, but then when you have a fucking fancy cottage, you've got 2 houses that you have to work on. You have 2. More doesn't mean better. And it's why me and my husband live an incredibly simple life. We don't have all these big giant toys, and we could have lots of this stuff. But truly, all I want to do is live on my property in unison with the lands. It's why we turned our property into a managed forest. Those things are important. Taking care of the planet, taking care of your people, taking care of what's important in your life, that is what you can't have everything. Where would you put it? Exactly. This is the thing. And when I heard this comment, I was just like, that is fucking bang on, man. Your thing, you don't own your things. Your things own you. So, if you get a bigger house, if you get a bigger car, if you get all of these things, then you have to worry about insuring them, then you have to worry about paying for them, and that is taking you out of this physical form. If you're worried at the end of the month how you're going to pay your bills, or if you're worried about, am I going to be able to send my kid to university? If you're worried about all of these things, it takes you away from living in your power. It takes you away from living in your truth. And that is what all of this fear is. Consumerism is fear. Oh my God, if I don't have the latest and greatest, I'm truly not I'm not important. I don't have the latest and greatest of anything. I mean, I got a new computer because I had the other one since 2011. I'm trying to think. Yes, I have a nice house, but me and my husband built this house. Me and my husband, we cleared the land, and yes, we had contractors come in and help us do some of the bigger pieces, but where I'm sitting right now, there was a giant hole when the contractors dug out the basement, and I hand filled that giant hole. We put on all the siding, we did all the insulation, we did all this ourselves because we wanted to be connected to where we live. I wanted all of our energy to be in this property. So yes, this property is fucking magical because we've allowed it to be magical. We've put our energy into this space. So how do you get started communicating to spirit? Let's get there, because I've been talking for an hour, or I feel like I've been ranting for an hour. Yeah, somebody says that they just cleansed and purged and moved to a much smaller house and couldn't be happier. Beautiful property. Blessed. There we go. It's not about all of the things you have. And when you're so focused on getting the next greatest thing, you're not living your life. You're not in your energy. You're not in your power. So yeah, if you want expensive things, hey, treat yourself. I mean, fuck, I bought a almost $200 thing of Odin. Like, yeah, I splurge every once in a while. Yeah, I've been to Morocco. I traveled, all of those things. But I'm conscious about those purchases. Like, I'm not just willy-nilly buying shit all over the place just because, oh my God, it's filling up something, right? When we feel bad, we want to buy something to make ourselves feel better. Not the right way to go. So let's talk about spirit. Did you just see spirit come in? So when I have noticed this on my lives, and if you've watched if you go to Facebook, you can actually watch some of my previous card readings, and you'll actually see spirit fly in and out of my head. And I'm actually realizing that that's how they connect with me. Yeah, exactly. Grumpy Granny says she had no income for nearly a year and she managed. She can do it. That's the other thing. COVID is truly showing us that we can survive with nothing. And I'm going to give you a little insight into spirit, because they give me stuff like 5-6 years out. Now, I'm not doing this to create fear, but spirit has been telling me since the very beginning that this is going to last 5 years. They've also been telling me that the internet is going to go down in a big way. And I don't know if you've noticed, but there were a couple of attacks on some of the big server farms and some major websites went down. this is just the beginning. There are people testing, hackers testing the systems to see how they can make the North American grid go down. And I know this sounds like total conspiracy, but House of Hoodoo, who I really truly respect, actually just posted that exact message, that we are going to have to go back to living simply. So prepare yourself for a much simpler life. Prepare yourself for living off the land. Prepare yourself for not having access to things like these. Start getting the phone numbers of all of your friends. Start getting, off the grid. So if you own a business and you're dependent on Instagram and you're dependent online and you don't have all your clients' phone numbers or emails, you might want to consider. And this isn't about creating fear. And I will tell you how this works. There are possible timelines happening right now. There was a Trump timeline that we were all on that fortunately we figured out how to get off. So there was a possibility that he was going to come back into power and it was going to mess with everything. And we are on a timeline right now that is going to, we have two options. Everything is either going to stay the same or we're going to go into this simpler life. And if we can't get COVID under control, if we can't come together as a global community, we're going to end up living simply. And I will tell you that from what I've seen, the world isn't going to come together and the global community isn't going to help each other. And we're going to be in this position for quite a while. So this isn't to scare you, but this is to say to you, learn how to live simply, learn how to live off your land. If you don't have a garden, I don't have a garden because I kill everything. So next summer, that is my plan, is to create a garden here somehow. If you're a green thumb and you want to come help me do that, I would really appreciate it because I suck. I kill everything. But life is going to change. The virus is, Granny, I agree. The virus is Mother Nature's way of removing the things that aren't good for this planet. And I don't say that lightly. I know that innocent people have passed, but that is happening to shock us back into reality. It's like, why are children passing of this? Why are, Africa is going to be devastated by this. South America has already been devastated by this. So essentially what they're saying is, if you don't get this under control, this is going to happen everywhere. So we have to be, I know raised beds. I'm going to totally do in Puslinch, we're on the edge of the escarpment. So you dig anywhere on our property and you hit rocks. So I have to do raised beds. Yes, I know, I'll get there. But start thinking about homesteading. If you've been wanting to move to the country for a while, I would suggest moving to the country. If you can. If you can't, then try to do things like, if you're in an apartment building, try to figure out how to have a garden on your balcony. Try to figure out, if you're in an apartment building and you're way up at the top, I would maybe find an apartment that's closer to the ground. So if something does happen, that it's not a nightmare to get down to the bottom. All of these things. This is what Spirit has been showing me for probably the last 6 years. And the timeline keeps shifting. So about 3 or 4 years ago, when I got my office in town, they told me that I needed to have an office in town so people could access me, because we're out in the country, and not that it's a long drive to my place, but if things shifted, people would not want to come out here because it's too far. So anyway, let's talk about connecting with Spirit. How, as an individual that doesn't have a relationship with Spirit right now, how do you connect to Spirit? Well, we've already talked about creating the ritual. We've talked about getting some divination tools. But one of the hardest things, and the key to all of this, is getting quiet. Now, this is where I see people tap out in my courses. This is where I see people go, it's just not possible for me. 90% of the day, I don't have music on. I don't listen to podcasts. I don't have the TV on. I sit in quiet. Like here in my house right now, there's nothing on. There's no music playing, there's no nothing. And that is 90% of my day. Because you have to get quiet to hear the things, especially in the beginning. And not just quiet, but quiet in here. You know, I think it's one of the main reasons why I'm so good at what I do is I have learning disabilities that doesn't allow me to remember things. So I always say this quarter of my brain is completely empty, and that's where spirit shows up. So I'm not constantly worrying with my thoughts. Like if I have, thanks, Grumpy Granny. When those thoughts are worrying and when I'm overwhelmed and when I'm depressed and when I have anxiety, that's when I don't hear spirit. So in the last, during COVID, I've had some severe bouts of depression just because I'm not able to get quiet. My son, was home 24/7. At the beginning of the pandemic, my husband and my son were home 24/7. For me, that's a bloody nightmare because I need it to be quiet for me to connect with spirit. So that is my first suggestion. Carve out some time for you to get quiet. So not reading a book, not listening to music, not, chanting or any of those things, just quiet. And whether it's an hour a day, whether it's your whole day, you need to get quiet. Number 2, you need to learn how to listen to your body. So one of the main reasons in spirituality that we teach you about the chakras is because it's teaching you to connect with not just the energy of your body, but actually your body. So a lot of the messages that come through me actually transmute through my body. So when I'm sitting with somebody and we're doing a session, I actually get physical feelings in my body and I can be like, isn't your right arm that's really tight right now? You have tension in your shoulder or like, and the last time I did this, the girl was like, I need to get surgery on my shoulder. Physically, especially if you're an empath, anybody here kind of like, I don't love to put a lot of attention on being an empath because it's only a tiny aspect of who we are. But if you feel other people's emotions, if you are affected by the energy, thank you. So insightful. Thank you. I really appreciate it. If you're affected by other people's energy, you're probably receiving messages via your body. And if you're not, in tune with your body, if you don't know what your normal body feels like, and then if something is like, I get flutters. There was the one time I had a client and I'm like, what's up with your uterus? Sometimes when people come, I ask really specific questions about specific things. But I'm like, what's up with your uterus? Like my uterus was literally like, and it was endometriosis. But I could feel that in my own body. Spirit is trying to give us messages in any way they possibly can. So yes, we need to be in tune with our bodies. So when spirit connects with us, we know what is ours and what is theirs. One of the other things that I do when I know I have a session or I am going to do a group is I don't eat a lot. And I definitely don't eat things that I know could upset my stomach. So when I go do a session, I probably the whole afternoon I have fasted. Because the worst thing is when you're getting an upset stomach and you're like, is this a message from spirit? Or is this just, I ate a crappy burger from McDonald's? So making sure that you're eating healthy. So again, when we go back to the whole concept of raising your vibration, I'm a huge believer that what goes into your body affects your vibration. So, I physically can't be a vegetarian or vegan. I'm O negative. Anybody else out there an O negative? Our bodies react very weirdly to not having meat. And, there's this huge push, and I get it, to become vegetarian and vegan. But for me, I was vegetarian for 10 years when I was younger, and it almost killed me. I got severe vertigo. My blood pressure dropped extremely, and my I was on iron for years, and I ate properly. When people are like, well, did you like substitute, blah, blah, blah? Yes, I knew how to do it. Yeah, O negative. You can't be a vegetarian. And it's so funny because I've had so many friends that have been like, oh, I'm vegan. And I'm like, oh, what's your blood type? They're like, oh, negative. And it's like, why am I so tired all the time? Why am I so dizzy? Why am I so, I'm like, eat some fucking meat, because that's what your body needs. Some of us need it. And we don't eat a lot of meat in this house. And when we do eat meat, it's from a farm here locally that I know the butchers and I know how they treat the animals. I know those things. Veggies, but I go without. Yeah, and my body literally craves meat too. Like if we have gone 4 days without eating meat, because sometimes we do that in this house, I can kind of go like, woo, okay, yes, I need to have some liver. And ew, liver, but it helps for me. So paying attention to what goes in your body, it does affect your ability to communicate. And after, why I had to stop doing, you can't skip me. Exactly, you pass out. There are so many people, and that's the other thing about the spiritual community. So many people say, you have to do this. You have to do it this way. You have to be vegan. You have to all of these things. No, you have to do what works for you. You have to do what raises your vibration. Yeah, that may raise their vibe. I'm sure there are people out there that are vegan and super high vibe. I mean, my friend Vix, and we've had this conversation a million times because she is very pro-vegan. But her and I said, Vix, I love you. But I can't do that. Physically, it hurts my body to be vegan. So now, because we've had this conversation, she always puts like this little disclaimer, like, if you physically can't be vegan, I totally understand. But just make sure that you get your meat from a happy source. So yeah, the spirit police. It's really fucking hard sometimes to be in this industry and feel like, or community, and feel like you belong. Because there's so many fucking rules. Ritual and spirituality has nothing to do with rules. Ritual and spirituality is all about your connection to the divine, your connection to spirit, your connection to your ancestors. So put aside everybody else's beliefs for a moment and listen to your body. What does your body need? Right? If you need to take tinctures, if you need to just drink water. Have you seen this breatharian where I saw this video with this guy, he hasn't eaten for 4 years. He just drinks water and breathes in the nutrients from the air, which I'm like, how are you not dead? But he's not. But if that doesn't work for you, it will kill you. I see so many people torturing themselves to fit in to the spiritual community, and it's so toxic. When somebody comes online or, does a video like this and tells you that these are the ways that you have to do it, walk away. Walk away. Because if you're truly a spiritual being, everybody's path is an individual path. That everybody is here to do something different. This is my job. My job is to wake people the fuck up. And yes, I know I trigger people sometimes. I know that that's what I'm here to do. I speak my truth. And if my truth helps somebody else find their truth, I am so happy, because when I was growing up and I was seeing spirit and I was overwhelmed by the messages that they were giving me, I had nobody to talk to. My mom tried her best, but she didn't understand it, and I couldn't communicate it in the way that, because I had nobody to mentor me. When I was born in 1976, I'm 45 years old. Trust me, there was nobody to hold my hand to tell me this is the way. Everybody kept trying to pull me into Christianity. Everybody kept trying to pull me in other directions. And it really sucked because I wasn't able to see my own truth because everybody kept telling me, oh, that's evil. No, you don't do that. Oh, God. It's like, no, we can't even have this conversation. When I tried to tell friends that I saw spirits, nobody believed me. And now, because I've done so many readings and taught so many courses, people are like, okay, yeah. And when you see spirit flying into my hair and out of my hair on video, people understand that what I'm doing is real. So yeah. K Word said, I have breakdowns because I didn't know how to communicate what was coming through. So K Word, read my book, man. It's called The Barefoot Medium. You can find it on Amazon or on my website. I talk about all of it. I had severe postpartum depression because I was blocking my connection to spirits. My son was actually born because spirit told me that if I didn't have a child, all of this ends with me, and that they needed this to continue in the world. And it's so funny because I love my son dearly, but my husband and I had decided not to have kids. And then one day, spirit was like, you need to have a fucking baby. I was like, what? I'm like, no, because like, damn, I actually told my mom as a child that I wanted to become a nun because in my head, that was the only way that I was going to be able to exist in this world and not have a child. Because that was the only option given when I was a kid. The expectation was that as a woman, you grow up and you bear children. That was not the life that I had designed for myself. But when spirit showed up and said, you need to have a kid, I listened. And it was so funny because this story is also in my book. I thought because my husband had said that he didn't want to have children, that when I finally told my husband that I needed to have a child, not just, I kind of want to have one. It was like, I have to do this. I thought that meant me and my husband were no longer going to be together. And I still remember because I was so pissed. So I'd been thinking about this for 2 weeks. I'm like, how am I going to tell Bill? And I had a plan in my head. I was like, okay, I'm going to give him the option to say yes to this, but I'm also in the back of my mind knowing that I could find a sperm donor or I could just find somebody on the street. So here I am. I sat up really tall. We were on the couch, I still remember. And I looked at my husband and he was like, oh, what? Like he knew immediately that I had something important to tell him. And I honestly, I thought this conversation was going to be the end of our relationship. We'd been together 10 years at this point. Always saying to everybody, we're not having children. And it was so funny because he was laying on the couch like that. And he's like, what? And I said, I want to have kids. I need to have kids. We need to have one now. Like, I feel like if we don't have one now, then this isn't going to happen. And he goes, okay. And then I was so pissed because I had built, again, fear. I had built it up so big that I thought it was going to be a for sure no. And that was my fear. But I trusted, again, see how this all goes back to trusting spirit? I trusted spirit so deeply at that point that I knew they were right. And I get so teary about it because my son is the biggest gift. Spirit gave me my son. And my son is, if you've met him, he's fucking magical. And my son sees spirit. My son has seen spirit since he was 2. And thankfully, I decided to go into all of this for my son so he didn't have to grow up the way that I grew up, in fear of what I was seeing. And that's it. I'm trying to educate people about this because I know what my experience was And I don't want my son to have that experience. So my son will be like, hey, do you see the green man in the trees? You're like, fuck no, but like, that's amazing you do. And he's never had fear around it. He's never had fear around spirit. He is so open. He's so healing. Like my son's touch, it kind of worries me a little bit because, sorry, I'm get all teary here. His healing touch is so amazing. He is a gift. And I know that spirit put him in my life because he's going to do amazing things one day. And I don't know what that's going to be. And it's so funny because he's Mr. Science too. He wants to become he said the other day, he goes, I think I want to be an astrologer. And I was like, what? And he goes, no, like the stars. I'm like, oh, you want to be like an astronaut and do astronomy? He's like, yes. So, I don't know what he's going to do, but maybe he finds the next planet that everybody needs to go to, or maybe whatever it is, but he's going to do all of this with a wide open connection to spirit, with absolutely no fear. That's what I want for people. I want every single one of you to be so wide open that you don't fear anything. Because when you have spirit on your side, and when you have ancestors on your side, and when you have the collective energy that runs through all things on your side, life becomes so fucking magical. And yes, we're human. We are here to have a human existence. So I have shitty days. Yesterday was a crap day, and you saw it in my video because none of this energy was in it. Because my health was crappy and that energy was low. Like if you go and watch yesterday's video, you'll be like, Emma, are you okay? Man, this is like unbelievable. And to me, that is just proof. When your vibration is low, when you're ill, when you're not feeling yourself, you're not connecting to that piece. So getting quiet, paying attention to your body, and I understand fear. Trust me, I have had deep, deep fears in my life. I've had some, like I said, Morocco, back alley, weird men. I have been in those situations, but ultimately for me, I knew I was going to be okay because spirit was with me. Always. Spirit is with you always because the energy of this planet is always with you. Always. You are molecules, electrons, and protons bouncing up against each other. And really, if you look at science, excuse me, if you look at science, we are all connected through those electrons and protons. We are all connected through the energy that runs through everything. It's how being psychic works. Psychics tap into that energy and then are connected to energy. So allowing yourself to be more open. When you're afraid, you're never going to see anything. When you live in fear of like what your Uncle Terry in spirit is going to tell you, he can't tell you the good stuff that he really wants to tell you. Because listen, whenever I sit down with somebody, or whenever I would do a group, or whenever I would do a live, I always ask for messages for the highest and greatest good. You can decide that you don't want negative messages. You can decide that, hey, only give me those fearful messages when it's really important. So when I'm saying to you, if we don't get this pandemic under control, spirit's gonna like take away our things that make us happy, like as in the internet, as in like phone, as in like all of those things, because they need to shake us harder. And that's not a scary message. That's just the truth. Like if we don't get this planet back under control, if we don't pay attention to how we're destroying the earth, if we don't pay attention to the consumerism that's going on, like I saw, and ultimately I'm a mass people watcher. I love watching people, and I'm so fascinated by human nature that I sit in moms groups and I'm so fascinated by what is important to people. Yesterday there was this big huge thread about Amazon, like Amazon Prime Day isn't happening in Canada, and I'm like, "Oh, boo fucking who? There more shit that you don't really need, you can't get." And Bezos doesn't need any more fucking money. So please don't support Amazon. We need to focus on local community. We need to focus on raising the vibration of the planet through caring for the planet. We have to start doing that because we're destroying our connection to this planet. We're destroying our connection to our ancestors. Do you think ancestors had a fucking phone that can like transport them into other people's houses? Hell no. Hell no. And because of that, their connection was so much deeper. Social media has become this thing that takes us out of ourselves. It's not making connections. I mean, yes, this is awesome. I love that you guys can watch me and connect and hear my truth and listen to what I'm able to do. But that's not real human connection. We're connecting through a screen. It's different. Connect deeply with your community. Connect deeply with the people that are important to you. Connect deeply with your friends, your family, and enliven this planet that we're living on instead of, in Canada, I've never really understood it. We buy these big giant houses that are our castles, and we go, we'll maybe see you on the weekend. When I grew up, you would just drop by somebody's house. Everybody, knew those houses that were like had open door policy. And life felt so much better because we were sharing as a community. We were coming together as a community. I knew that if I needed something, I could walk down to the neighbors and I could ask anything. I could ask for anything as a child at my neighbors. We have removed ourselves so much from that idea of community. We have removed ourselves from humanity. It's all about me and my needs and my wants and my desires. It has nothing to do with the collective anymore. It has nothing to do with coming together as a community anymore. And that's why we're in trouble. That is why this pandemic will either destroy us or make us better. When we can finally come together as a world community and say, hey, Africa is being decimated. Canada, maybe you should give some of those 98 million doses to people in Africa because we need to work together to do this. Then maybe, one of the things that we've really seen in North America is this me attitude. Trump, and I try not to be political, but this is not really political. This is about world community. This is about coming together. Everything has been so divisive. Right now there's this thing, you either believe in vaccinations or you don't, and everybody is fighting. I understand why some people can't be vaccinated. It's why I chose to be vaccinated, because I know there are people out there that cannot do it. They've either been vaccine injured before, or their immune systems can't handle it, or whatever reason why you can't be vaccinated. That is totally fine. I'm not saying that everybody needs to be vaccinated. But what I'm saying is we need to look at this as a global community. We need to come together. If you are healthy and you can be vaccinated, then go and do it. Because we all know the statistics at this point. 90% of the people that are in hospital are unvaccinated. That's fucking science. That's not like a lie. And it drives me crazy. Spirit and Mother Earth is trying to get us to come together. It's trying to make us see that we are a global community. And people are fucking ignoring it, and it's driving me crazy. Yes, if you can't, I get it. If you can't, it's kind of like, look at the vegan conversation we just had. I can't go vegan. So other people need to go vegan so I can still consume my meat, my happy meat. If you can go vegan, that is incredibly important to do that right now. I physically can't. So other people need to do it. So it's the same conversation with vaccination. Some people can't get vaccinated, so the ones that are healthy enough to do it need to do it. That's just the way it works. And this is what Spirit is trying to tell us. Spirit is trying to say we need to work together, and we're not seeing it. We need to stop, like I was talking about in the spirituality realm, we need to stop telling people what to do. We need to allow people to sit in their own truths. We need to allow people to see what is possible. Like I said, opening yourself up to everything and then slowly figuring out where you belong. When people talk about cultural appropriation and say, you can't, well, how do you know what people's ancestry is? How do you know? Like even people sitting here, like Listen on YouTube said she doesn't know what her ancestry is. Excuse me. So if she chooses to pick up any tool, it's kind of like she's guessing until she knows. You can't tell somebody that they can't pick up a spiritual tool. Yes, there are closed practices, but until we know what our ancestral truth is, we don't know if it's for us or not. We need to stop judging people. We need to stop telling people what to do. We need to say, go and live your best life and be open to receiving whatever shows up for you. And then people will finally, is there a big rune on the wall behind you? Yes, there is. There's lots of runes behind me. There's runes everywhere in this house. They're under the floor. They're in the paint on the walls. They're on chalk on the walls. They're everywhere. I use them a lot in my practice. So yes, there are. But do you understand what I'm saying in this whole entire conversation? If you have fear, it will be very hard to create a relationship with Spirit. So face your fears. That is what this is all about. We are facing all of our fears right now. Lots of people are fearful of the vaccine. Lots of people are fearful of COVID, and that shrinks our energy. So if you can get outside of that, we have to stop worrying about it. COVID will eventually become like the flu. So and if you don't know any of this history, go and friggin' research it. So there was a flu pandemic way back, and it killed a lot. I think it was something like, I can't even remember, like 3 million people or something. And then the flu just became a yearly thing. That is what is going to happen with COVID. That is what's going to happen. So we have to start learning how to live our lives. We can't live in fear of any of this because you can see what has happened. You can see what has happened when this pandemic showed up. It became very divisive. It put people behind walls and all sorts of ego showed up, and people say, you need to do this and I'm not going to do this, and conspiracy theory this and this is Spirit and Mother Earth testing us. Can we actually get through this and come together as a community? I truly believe we can, but we have to take fear out of it. We have to open ourselves up, and we have to connect to something greater than ourselves. That is the only way that we're going to get out of this. So make a connection to your land. Make a connection to your ancestors. Make a 50 million. Thank you very much. It was the 1918 flu pandemic, killed 50 million people. We've done this before, and we've gotten out of it before. We can get out of it now. But everybody has to stop throwing up walls. Everybody has to stop judging each other. I have tons of friends. I know tons of people that are anti-mask, anti-vax, aggressively so. But it doesn't make me stop loving them. It doesn't make me, hate them or tell them that they don't belong on this planet because they're horrible people. That is the piece of all of this that we need to stop. That is the biggest test. Can you love somebody that has different opinions than you? Think about that for a second. In this spiritual community, I'm connected to so many people. I know so many people in this industry. And there are people that will watch this video and go, Emma, you're fucking crazy. There are people that will, say that they don't agree with it. They don't have to. It's my truth. But I can love people that don't agree with me. I can love people that have completely different opinions than me. My husband and I are complete opposites. Like, we are so opposite, it's not even funny. My husband is a practical, science-based, and I love science, but he doesn't get all of this, even though he admitted the other day that he was seeing spirit, because spirit activity on our property right now is through the fucking roof. And I will tell you, if you come here, you will probably see something because it's intense. And I think it's because spirit wanted me to give this message, and I was holding back. I wasn't giving these messages. I wasn't saying to people, hey, we're in this for 5 years and the internet's going to go down and we need to be prepared and we need to go back to the old way of living. That is the message they have been giving me for the last 5 years. And I've shared it a couple of times in a live, but I think I need to be more public about it. I think I need to be more public about sharing this message of we can get out of this pandemic, but we have to learn how to love everybody. And we have to learn how to let other people make their own choices. So yeah, there is a part of me that believes this is Darwin's story in effect. I do believe that a piece of this is to get rid of some of the people on this planet that aren't in a mindset that is going to push the planet forward. I think there are some people right now that are so based in that fear that they cannot exist on this planet right now. And I think the pandemic may have a piece to do with that. And yes, does this sound fucking crazy? Yes, it does. Even for me to say some of this stuff so wholly, so truthfully, so honestly, sometimes makes me feel a little crazy. But that's okay. I always laugh because remember at the beginning when I was talking about the purse clutchers? Whenever I talked to the purse clutchers in the groups that I would do when I was speaking for spirit, they always came from a Catholic background. And I would always say to them, so probably about, I think it was 5 or 6 years ago, the Catholic Church actually came out, and it's buried deep on their website, but they came out and said mediumship and healing and all of those things are allowed within the Catholic realm. Because what they noticed was miracles weren't happening, saints weren't showing up anymore, prophecies weren't showing up anymore. And they realized that they had actually been squashing the miracles. They had actually been squashing the magic. And the Catholic Church, and I need to go back, it's on my Facebook page like 5 years ago. I posted the article about this. But if the Catholic Church can come around and say, it's okay for you to go see a medium, it's okay for you to go see a prophet, it's okay for you to go and see a healer, there's a reason why things are shifting on this planet. There's a reason why we're all going through this right now. Because Spirit is saying you need to save yourself. We can't do it for you. And that's why Spirit disappeared for me at the beginning of the pandemic. And I knew it. They needed us to realize that we are the ones dragging down the earth. We are the ones creating all this chaos. We are the ones that are destroying this planet. It has nothing to do with the earth. The earth, and we saw it at the beginning of the pandemic. When everything shut down, the earth started to heal. The earth, this planet that we live on right now, will continue to exist just not in this form. So I'm going to get this word wrong. But before humans existed on this planet, the climate spiked really, really hot and then went really, really cold. So we had ice ages and we had really like tropical times. And that's when the dinosaurs were alive. So it did this for millions of years. It got really cold and it got really hot, it got really hot and got really cold, got really hot and got really cold. And then we reached this time on the planet called and I'm going to get this word wrong, Anthropocene. So right now, our climate is doing this. We're having like little dips and we're having little lows, but we're seeing the results of what we've been doing to this planet. It's really, really hot here in Canada, and it shouldn't be. The planet will do fine without us. But if we go back into these really low lows and really high highs again, it's going to kill off humans completely. So we need to get this under control. The planet has gone from these ice ages to, super tropical things millions of times or hundreds of times. We just happen to be alive on this planet during this Anthropocene piece. And scientists are saying they don't know how long this is going to last. It might be here for now. It might be here for the next 100 years. It might be here for 1,000 years. We don't know because you can't predict what the planet is going to do. But the biggest piece here is we can help. That is what Spirit wants you and me to understand. We can help this. We can go back to a simpler way of living. We can consume less. We can recycle more. There's something like 15% of what we put in the recycling actually gets recycled. That's devastating. That's devastating. We have the technology to recycle all of the things that we have created on this planet, but we don't. So somebody's just showed up. What do I do? My dog's barking. Give me 2 seconds. Hey, I'm just live. So what is it that you're picking up?
It's for Kelsey. It's a couple bracelets and
Okay, there you go.
Thank you.
Awesome. Have a great day. Watch out, Frank. Come on. Hey, that's my human life showing up. Somebody picking something up from the shop. Answer the door. I did answer the door. It was just somebody picking up something from the shop. So that's a really long rant. I've almost been talking for 2 hours. The only way for people to connect to Spirit is to get clear about how they want to live on this planet. Spirit is pissed at us right now. Mother Earth is pissed at us right now. Our ancestors are pissed at us right now. Our ancestors worked really hard to get us here. I tell people all the time, look at Canada. They came over on a teeny tiny boat and came into Quebec to a giant forest. And in 154 years, we have decimated the environment. No wonder Indigenous people are pissed. We've screwed it up so badly that we are now in a situation that we don't know if we can undo it. And if you want to be witchy, if you want to connect to Spirit, if you want to be a part of the magical realm that I live in, then you have to start paying attention to the heartbeat of the earth. You have to start paying attention to your body. You have to start paying attention to what is going on right now. Because this divisiveness and this anger and this fear and all of the things that are going on with the climate right now are a direct result from how we are living on this planet. And Spirit will be pissed for an eternity if we don't turn this around. And, this is my belief. But Spirit has been telling me this for years. Spirit has been telling me if we don't get back to our traditions, if we don't go back to the old way of living, if we don't live a more sustainable life, this planet will not be here for us to live on. And trust me, you want to be afraid of something? Be afraid of our ancestors. Be afraid of Spirit because they're so pissed at us. They're so pissed that we created a pandemic to get us back in line, to get us back to where we need to be. So get quiet, open yourself up, release the fear, and start thinking as a global community. That is truly the only way that we are going to get through this. And when you start doing these things, when you start sharing your truth with the world, and once you start getting rid of the fear around connecting to source, magic fucking happens. We can heal this planet. I am 100% confident that we can turn this around. I am 100% confident that we can start heading in the other direction. So please, instead of being afraid of communicating with Spirit, instead of being afraid of communicating with your ancestors, just start opening yourself up. It truly is that simple. Sitting in the same place every single day, saying, I am open. Using your cards to connect with Spirit. Using your pendulum to connect with Spirit or your ancestors. You get to choose. And again, what I have said is it's all about expansion. When we sit in fear, your energy contracts and you can't be open to Spirit. If you're afraid about evil spirits, nobody's going to show up. Because sometimes Spirit gets angry. Spirit's angry at us right now because we can't get our shit together. So yes, when you tap into that energy, it feels angry, but rightfully so. We're not doing what we were put here to do. We're doing horrible things to planets and our community and to people, and we're becoming angry at each other when we need to be, expansive collectively. We need to think bigger. We need to think about this planet. I'm constantly telling people, if you don't respect the land will get pissed at you. If you don't respect Spirit will get pissed at you. And it's not like, when I say pissed, I'm not like, they're not going to throw things. I mean, yes, I have experienced that. I have experienced them throwing things. But for me, that's just them going, hey, we're here. It's not anger. When all these ghost hunters go out and they see all these things happening, you don't have to hunt ghosts. That I have never understood. You don't have to hunt them. They're right here. The reason why when you see these videos of things flying and when you see people that are grabbed by Spirit, it's because you've set the intention to hunt them. Anything that is being hunted is going to be pissed off. And trust me, I've had Spirit slap me because I'm not paying attention. I've had Spirit, but none of it is evil. But it's because we're not paying attention to them. If your best friend, were standing right beside you every single day and going, hey, Emma, hey, Emma, hey, Emma, hey, Emma, hey, Emma, hey, Emma, hey, Emma. And I was like, no. Do you think that friend would love me or hate me? Do you think that friend would gently nudge me or they would push me? Fear and ignoring Spirit makes them pissed energetically. And they're not doing any of these things to hurt us or harm us, but they're trying to go, I'm right here. You don't have to hunt me. I'm right here. I'm in your thoughts every day. I'm in your emotions every day. I'm a part of you every single day. And we think we need to hunt them. We think we need to do these big rituals to connect with them. They're right here. You just need to go, oh, hey, how's it going? Like, here, I'll make space for you. If you start treating spirit like a friend, like an ancestor, like a compassionate human being, because that's what they are. They're just vibrating so high we don't see them. But they're here right along with us every single day. So just start opening yourself up. You need to dilute that fear. They're not here to harm you. Spirit is not here to harm anybody. Spirit is here to show us the way. So open up. I've almost ranted for 2 hours. So I think we're going to stop it there. But thank you for joining me. You know, we had so many people on today, and I truly appreciate it. I hope share this video with people that need to hear this message. You know, show up tomorrow as we embrace the goddess. Share all of this information that you learned today with your friends, your family, and hey, they can judge for themselves. If they come on and watch this video and go, she's fucking crazy, that's fine. That's their choice. You don't have to convince them of anything. But if you share this video with somebody and they go, damn it, there's so much truth in that, that hits home. That is something that I need to hear today. Then share the damn video. Share this with all your friends. Share it with all your family, because we need to hear this message. We need to hear that we can get out of this with Spirit's help, with the global community's help. That's what Spirit needs you to know. So hopefully you could take some juicy tidbits for this. I see people already thanking me, so thank you for showing up and listening to my rantings. You know, if you have any questions, feel free to send me a DM. Feel free to send me an email. WOOshop.com is where you can purchase some magical tools if you feel like it. But we don't need these things. We just need an open mind. We need to be, you know, honest with ourselves. We need to step into our power. We need to stand in our truth and not allow people to put us in a box, not allow people to anger us. And when you step into that, it is so fucking powerful. And yes, I swear.